Welcome to the Sports Perspective, your number one destination for untold stories about the sports world. All right, everybody, welcome back to the second episode of the Sports Perspective, an episode I'm personally very excited for. Today, I'm being joined by a communications and graphics design student at St. Anselm College, who also happens to be the captain of their cross country team and the second most handsome host of the play by play with Patrick and Brandon. Brandon, how are you doing today?
Uh, I'm doing pretty good. Excited to do this. Talk a little sports. So yeah,
Yeah, it's been a minute since we've been on a podcast together.
it
For
has.
those who don't know, this past summer, I was one of the two hosts on a sports podcast called The Play by Play with Patrick and Brandon. The other host was, of course, Mr. Brandon LeBlanc. And we talked about sports, we interviewed some people. That's where I got, most of the inspiration for this project. So when I was, coming up with the guest list, trying to figure out who I wanted to have on the sports perspective, Brandon was the first choice.
Much
So,
appreciated.
with that being said, it's time to dig deep and pick apart your entire life and career. You ready?
Oh boy. Yeah, let's run it.
So, I think the natural place to start is, of course, running. Um, I can imagine running has been a very big part of your life for a very long time. And we actually ran together for, I believe, a year in high
Yeah,
school.
a year.
The Bishop Fee cross country team, we ran together for a year. Brandon ran for 4. I only ran freshman year. Um, so my first question for you is, was that the start of your like cross country and track and field journey, or did you find like a love for running before that?
So if you ask my parents, I've liked running as soon as I could figure out how to do it. I used to run laps around my house when I had a lot of energy. And I think in terms of like actual sports, the first time I competed in running was in third grade, my middle school, St. John the Evangelist Middle School, Attleboro, Mass. Had a cross country team. And my mom was like, Brandon, you love running. You should do cross country. And I was like, yeah, sure. It's a race on a field. Like, I'm down for that. That'd be cool. So I did that in middle school from third to eighth grade. And I did a couple seasons of track and I liked it. I liked running a lot. And then when I got to high school, I'd thought about trying out for the football team, but considering I'd never played anything past flag football, I was like, that's probably not going to go well. Also, considering my freshman year, I was probably 5'6" on a good day, maybe 115. Would not have ended well for me if I was playing contact football. Um, so I decided to join the cross country team, and now I've been doing it competitively for 8 years now. This, the last one of, competitive uh, cross country running for college or high school. So yeah, I've been doing it for a long time now.
So you talk about finding that love for running. And my first question revolving around that for you is, running wasn't the only sport. Most kids, especially when they're young, play multiple sports. From when I've known you to also have played lacrosse and basketball. So I want
Yep.
you to, describe your experience with both of those sports and then describe how you came to the decision that running was the one for you.
So when I was a kid, I didn't like hyper specialize in any one thing. So I played a bunch of different sports, but the two ones that I'd say I enjoyed the most were basketball and lacrosse. Basketball, I've loved basketball, whether like watching it or playing it since I was very young. I had a Kevin Garnett jersey when I was like 5 years old, watching the Celtics win the finals. So I played basketball from probably about third grade through eighth grade. And, I played on my middle school team. I played on a CYO team. And basketball is a very fun sport. It's gotten me into some trouble in college with ankle injuries, but it's still a fun sport. Still love to play it and watch it. And then lacrosse was actually sort of a late thing. I played baseball most of my uh, in my elementary and middle school days, and then seventh grade I didn't play baseball, and then eighth grade my good friend Kip that I went to preschool with, who was a really good lacrosse player. He's like, Brandon, you should play for the Rentham League team with me, and I was like, that actually sounds really fun. So I got some secondhand lacrosse gear and suited up, and it was fun. And I think the I like different aspects of the sports. Like I love watching basketball and like playing it. Lacrosse was almost there. I was there for the vibes. Like it was a really good vibe on that team. I loved playing with my friend. Having Tip on the team was super cool, and like I got really lucky. All the kids on that team in eighth grade were there were some really cool guys. They made it really easy for me to start playing the sport, and I just enjoyed it. Running around on the field, hitting people. That was really, really fun. But I haven't played lacrosse in a while because I got cut from the lacrosse team in high school, and I got cut from the basketball team in high school. But I still play a little bit of pickup basketball every now and then, just because it's fun. Good thing to do with the guys.
That's awesome. So you talk about, these other sports and we whittled down to cross country. And cross country, not always the easiest road either. I know one thing we used to talk about a lot, you had like a very tumultuous coaching experience with high school cross country. There were certain decisions that didn't go your way that you didn't like. Talk me through those, like what those decisions felt like, and then how they affected your cross country career.
Yeah, so in high school, I wasn't instantly the fastest guy on the team. I started out about as far down the power rankings or roster list as you could, and it made me want to bust my tail, work hard, and get better. And there were a couple of times throughout my career in high school where there were some coaching decisions where like I would ask to run an event in track, and this is part of why I like cross country more than track is you don't have to worry about events, you just run the race. But there'd be times where I'd want to run a certain event in track, and my coaches would just put me in a different one and not explain why, and then I'd miss out on a qualifying standard, or they would um every so often they'd like drop me to a different training group, or they'd drop me out of running with the varsity team and move me to JV, and I'd always it would fire me up a little, get me upset. I'd be like, hey, man, I've been running pretty good. Like, where's this coming from? But I think the thing that stung the most, and from a coaching perspective, was senior year not being named a captain after working really hard that summer to get in shape and show up and be one of the better guys on the team. That one really stung. And my coach did not have a whole lot of kind words. And when I look back on this, part of me wonders if he was saying stuff just to fire me up and see if that would get me to run better. Because he said that he didn't think I had a lot of mental toughness, that I had an attitude problem, which might have been partially true, and then that he didn't think I had what it took to be an all state level runner. And like I don't know if he thought that for real or if he was just trying to say stuff to get me motivated, but I ended up running at the state championship that year. I ran well, and 4 years down the line, I'm a captain of a college team. So I'd say that every time that I got discouraged from that, I had to remember like I'm not running to gain some coach's approval, or I'm not running, for that. I'm running for myself, to prove that I can, be the best runner I can be. And oftentimes running for my teammates, you want to be there when, especially when you're as fortunate as I am to have two really great cross country and track teams, both high school and college. You don't want to just bail out. Every time I had a thought in my mind where I was like, oh, why am I doing this? I could just step away from the sport. I'm like, no, those are my boys. These are my brothers on this team. I'm gonna stick it out for them. I'm gonna continue to compete. And at the end of the day, I love running, and I wasn't gonna let anything that a coach said about me or did. I wasn't gonna let that get in the way of what I wanted to do.
How much did those feelings, especially, coming around a senior year, fighting through a coach's opinion, making all state, how much did that like fuel you to pursue running in college? And how much did that desire affect your decision to go to St. Anselm?
Oh, it had a huge effect on it because I probably wouldn't be on this team if I didn't make it to the state meet. Like I had a really good month in November, senior year of high school. I rattled off my three best 5K times in three back-to-back weeks at the coaches invitational, divisional championship, and the state meet. And they were all times that, could get me looked at by certain schools. And then once I had looked at that and I realized, oh, like I can run in college. Like it's not a matter of like, will these times get me looked at? It's like, what school can I apply to that I actually want to go to, that could also have the right, coach and team situation. definitely makes you run with a chip on your shoulder to hear stuff like that, and to have stuff like that happen. It makes you run with a little bit of purpose, a little bit of fire in your gut, which is definitely helpful.
Now, you've always spoken very highly of your coaches at St. Anselm. How does it feel to go from like a situation where you have these coaches that maybe aren't 100% behind you, don't believe in you in the way you believe in yourself, to a coach that then, is a 100% behind you and a big like motivating force?
It was a huge, it was a huge upgrade, I would say. And not to diss my coaches at Phoenix, I think deep down they did care about the sport and they cared about how I was running. But for whatever reason, they thought saying stuff like that might fire me up. Never quite understood it. But in college, having a coach that really gets it and wants to see you run well, wants to see you succeed. And one thing that stuck out is when I was getting recruited, uh, he said, I think you can help this team achieve our goals. I wasn't like an extra number. I wasn't just like a throwaway person. Coaches wanted me on this team. They felt that I was going to be an important piece. And looking back now, I can say that I was a pretty, not like, I'm not going to make like the Hall of Fame or anything, but I was, a pretty important piece of the team for, the last 4 years. So
So we solved the coaching issues moving from high school to college, obviously. But like other problems arise. No athlete ever has, 100% smooth road. And I think like the biggest bump in the road from my outside perspective was obviously the injuries. I mean, I'm thinking of a bad ankle injury that puts you up for a while. And obviously, any leg related injury is going to be horrible for a runner when that's everything you need. So talk me through that first big ankle injury you had and what your feelings were surrounding it. And then like what do you attribute your comeback to? How did you get through it? How did you push forward and how did you come out the other side stronger?
So I got that ankle injury freshman year. We didn't have a track program yet. So during the winter months, we were just out of season and we were like running on our own, but no serious training until like it started to get warmer out. So I was playing a ton of pickup basketball. And was that a good idea? Obviously, hindsight's 2020. You can say no, that was not a good idea. I probably should have just stayed running. My coaches reminded me of that one, two, or a billion times. So I came down after a rebound, put all my weight on my right foot, and stepped on my buddy's shoe, turned the ankle really bad. I think I tore three of the ligaments, sprained the rest of them. It was bad. I was at the hospital for a couple days, and I think I was in a boot for like 2 months. Um, the return to running was tough. I think if I had to credit it to anything, I would say that I enjoyed running with the St. A's team so much in the fall that all I could think about, like when I was in the boot or in the brace or on crutches, I was like, I cannot wait to get back out there, get back with the team and compete again. Because during that spring, we had like a spring track season and we went to like 3 or 4 track meets. And all the meets that I went to, all I could think about was, I wish I was running this. I can't wait to run this next year. So I, busted my tail over that summer, doing all the rehab, the physical therapy, the return to running plan, which was infuriating because I don't have patience is not my strong suit. It's not a virtue that I possess a ton of. So having to do like, 10-minute run, 15-minute walk, like it drove me up a wall. I was like, can I please just go for a regular run? And then all summer, rehab that injury. I come back in the fall, and I'm not in like the best shape of my life, but I I'm in decent shape. I'm ready for the season. First run back on campus, we're doing like a 2 mile shakeout before the time trial in the afternoon in August. I turned the same ankle on like a piece of pavement that I did not see while taking a turn, and I missed like a week and a half. I was out for 9 days. I couldn't run on that, and that was infuriating. I was like, really? First day that I get back here, and I thought my like career was over for a second. I'm like, there's no way I just turned that ankle again. But yeah, I'd say just wanting to be back with the team was a huge motivating factor. And then I like competing. Competing and racing is something that I enjoy. It's like my one of my favorite parts of the sport. So going to all the races and not competing drove me insane. And I knew that I wanted to be back and healthy for the fall so I could be out there with the team and, finishing on empty and giving it everything I had. So and I was fortunate. I ran 5 races that sophomore year and I didn't run my best comparatively, but I made it through the season, had some great memories and got better, learned a lot. So
So what I gathered from that is you attribute, a successful comeback, obviously to your own like competitive drive and wanting to compete and race. But the other part I gathered from that is, your teammates were a big factor. You wanted to be there for them. You enjoyed the camaraderie. And for a lot of people that maybe haven't race cross country or even any more of those like individual type sports, it might be hard to understand where that camaraderie comes from because, it is very much so an individual sport. You're running with your team, but at the same time, you're also running against your team for yourself. It's all about your time being as fast as possible, getting your best placement. Um, so for the viewers, why don't you describe how that camaraderie comes to be and how you form a team even through I have to be better than this guy next to me.
so I'd say like it really depends on the team. Sometimes you have a positive team environment, sometimes you don't. I'd say in high school, the team environment was very competitive, very one-on-one. I'm going to beat you in this race, but I've been very fortunate. The team up here, it was very much an iron sharpens iron thing. We're like, we are going to work together to go beat these other teams in the conference. And when you run with the same group of guys 6 days a week, and then you're living on the same campus as them, you're getting team dinners, you bond with them really quickly. And that was like by the time I had gotten out of preseason my freshman year, it was like I had 20 new friends. I was like, this is like the greatest thing ever. And when you're showing up every day, and whether it's in like easy miles or a workout or a long run, like you're putting in the work. You're in the same boat. You're all giving 100% of what you got on every given day. And like it's hard to describe, but there's no better feeling than Saturday morning getting on a bus with the fellas, going to some random school to run a race and just going out there and kicking ass and run as fast as you can and being able to share that with the team and be a part of that. They become your friends, they become your brothers so fast. And eventually you learn to look at it is not like I'm trying to compete with my teammate. It's like I'm trying to work with him to get up to that next group. I'm trying to work with my teammates in practice to hit our times and to get the miles in. So it's really about the mentality that your team has, and you have to credit that to like the captains that were there when I was a freshman, sophomore, junior. You got to set that team culture. You got to make it clear that you're working together in this.
You bring up how much team captains affect the team. And coming into this senior season, you were named the captain on St. A's cross country team. For you as an individual, how did that feel, coming full circle from not being named a captain in high school to then being given the driver's keys in college? And how important was it for you to maintain and continue to drive forward that culture that you speak so highly of for the team?
It was very important. It felt great to be named a captain. I was lucky. I was named a captain alongside my teammates Christian, Neil, and Andrew, and it's been really great leading the team with them. I think we've done a pretty good job all year. Um, it's it's hard. It's hard to describe, but I felt like I had such a good situation coming in here, and I had a lot of really great captains over the last 3 years that I was able to sort of look at what they did and what they did that worked and sort of build off of that. And then one thing that my coach said to us over the summer was, I don't need you guys to act any different than you already do just because you're captains. Like I like named you captains because of who you are and who you've been the past 3 years, and I want you to continue doing what you're good at. which was a huge vote of confidence to hear from my coach. And being able to go out there and just, lead by example. I like to think that one of my best attributes is that when I show up to practice, I show up with a smile on my face, ready to work, and I just love the sport. And if you love the sport and you show up every day with a good mindset, people on the team feed off of that. You make practice something that people enjoy, and it just builds a good culture.
A team with four captains is not very common, especially in like a smaller sport like cross country, where there aren't as many guys on a team. There aren't like positional groups. So how important was it for the four of you as a group to make sure like leadership was as seamless as possible and that you guys were in unison? And how did you work on that?
I think the really fortunate thing about the four of us being captains is that it made it really easy I'd say it made it really easy to make sure we were all doing a good job because you have three other guys to talk to if you're thinking about making a decision or talking to the team about something. You have four guys to remember the little stuff like what clothes we're going to wear to lift, when's practice, who's going on the bus for whatever meet. Um, it's been really really good to work with those guys, and they're all my friends. They're my boys. So it's been really sick to be able to lead the team with them and have a good senior year.
That's amazing. By the time this episode comes out, we will be very close to graduation. So my question for you with, your competitive running career that's been so long and so storied coming to an end, what are your thoughts and feelings like at the end of this road, and how do you plan to continue your running journey if you do it all?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. Um, so it's something that you definitely think about, like especially the closer it gets, and you start to realize, like near the end of last semester, we were doing the conference meet and having the regional championship. You think, oh, this is my last time on our home course. This is last time running cross country. But as I get closer, I'm getting to May. It's like starting to hit that this is it. I've got maybe 4 or 5 track meets left, and then I'm all done. It's a little surreal. Probably won't hit me until next fall when the team moves in and is having Shacklet and all of our other meets, and I'm not up there. I'm sure that's going to be a tough thing to deal with. I mean, it's pretty well documented that college athletes, like the first couple of years after they graduate, they're like, "What am I doing?" But what I am fortunate to have is I have 20 or so teammates that have graduated, guys from the years before, and they've all done different things with how they're approaching like running after college. I I want to start training for some half marathons and marathons. I can't see myself just stopping running completely because I like it too much. Obviously, I don't know how it's going to look depending on, what my life looks like in the future, but I have a feeling I'll find a way to make it work. Get the mileage up, start training for some marathons, hopefully rip some good times. It's going to be hard. Um, Racing 26 miles is something that is never even like I've never even gotten close to. So it's going to take a while to build the mileage up and the training up to where I feel confident enough that I can do that. But it's sobering to think about like this career and something that I care about so much, all pretty much coming to an end in 2.5 months. It's a lot. I'm sure we have the conference meet for outdoor in early May, so I'll probably be the last time I race. And I think about that. I think about that more often than I probably should. But I think sometimes whenever I get like a little concerned and I'm like, dang, it's gonna be all over, I'm just like, well, then you have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy the next 2 months, enjoy the practices, the team dinners, the races, really enjoy it, appreciate being a part of something like this, and finish empty the tank. I'm gonna empty the tank over the next 2 months. I got some big time goals I want to hit. I want to make sure I compete at the conference meet. So I'm not done yet. I'm gonna go till the wheels fall off.
Um, Obviously this show is about telling a guest story, but a lot of what the sports perspective is also about is finding out like what draws people to sports, what makes sports such a big part of our culture and how they've become so ingrained into, American society. And so I think one big question for you before we get back on the lighter side a little bit is if you had to take one lesson that you think your running career has taught you, one thing that's really shaped like who you are as a person, what would that be?
Dang. I can't say I've had to narrow it down to one thing before, but I'd say one thing that distance running in particular teaches you is to have discipline and to have mental toughness because you're out there every day and you're not going to wake up every day feeling great. You're going to wake up and be sore. You're going to have things that are, aching. You're going to have days where you feel like crap. And the thing that separates kind of okay runners from really good runners is having the discipline to, no matter how you're feeling, no matter where your head's at, to get up and get out there and do the work. And if you have that discipline, when your motivation will occasionally falter, the discipline's what you fall back on. You get out there, and having discipline is such a important life skill. You got to have discipline when you're, in school and you're doing a paper on something you don't like. Having the discipline to actually sit down and put the work in and get it done is super helpful. Having it in your work life is helpful. Having it just in the day to day, being disciplined with your life, how you take care of yourself, is super, super important.
It's interesting that you bring up discipline in the school life because obviously a big part of every student athlete's career is being an athlete, but the part people talk a whole lot less about is being a student. And I think you are in a very interesting position where, your athletics and your school have kind of intertwined in a position where because you're a communication student, you've had the opportunity to do a lot of school stuff involving sports. I think the biggest example I think of is I don't know if they call it a senior project over there, but you wrote a giant essay on the UFC this
I
past
did.
fall. You want to describe that for the viewers?
Yeah, so communication majors at St. A's have to do a senior thesis. It's like a big capstone thing, and it's 20 to 25 pages for regular comm students. Since I'm in the honors program, I had to do 40. And I was told I could pick literally anything as long as it related to communication in some way and would get approved uh, by my teacher. And I had a really good professor that was overseeing it. So I watched a ton of mixed martial arts. Like every Saturday that it's on, I'm watching the UFC, watching Bellator, watch old school Pride FC fights. It's a huge, huge part of my life. One of my best friends, Christian Wetzel, is a huge UFC fan, so I talk to him at practice, at dinner, like all the time. So I was like, if I can write a paper about the UFC, I'm going to. And my paper got approved. I looked at how the UFC's branding and media use has sort of been used to change and shift its image and perception in the public eye, which was really interesting. The UFC, when it started, was not the huge international sports brand that they are today. They started off as like a really fringe, underground sort of thing. People tried to ban it. John McCain wrote letters to all 50 states saying, please ban mixed martial arts. It's barbaric, it's dangerous, it's human cockfighting. There have been boxing promoters that have called the sport human cockfighting and said it was like modern day gladiatorial combat. There's been the UFC has gone through a lot of negative press, and throughout their existence, they have utilized commercials, music, TV shows, even the way they like format and frame and talk about their pay-per-views. They have used so many different tactics to try to shape their image from being this like underground like martial arts tournament, like something you'd see out of a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, to more being like boxing, to more being like the NFL, like the NHL, being a respected professional sports league. And it was interesting to see the evolution of that because they would have periods where they would go up, they'd have periods where they would face backlash, they'd respond to it. And obviously, progress is never linear, but they went from being almost banned in North America to being the fastest growing sport in North America in the 2010s and 2020s. So it was a really cool paper to write. I had fun with it. It's going to get published in the Humanitas Journal of Student Writing at St. A's, which is cool. And currently doing revisions for it for the honors program. So it's still hanging around, still talking about it a lot. And it was really cool to get to research something that I care about so much.
My next set of questions was going to be about, sports as a fan, being a fan of sports, because obviously, being an athlete, being involved in sports, it comes with being a fan of sports. I think they very much so go hand in hand. And it's interesting because you are the second guest in a row on this show that is a UFC super fan, which is a thing that I think is becoming more and more common. And you just did a very good job of describing how it is, such a fast growing sport. So I guess my next question for you is, how did you as an individual become a fan of the UFC?
Ooh, okay, so 2021 in the winter, I was bored in English class looking at my iPad, and I saw a YouTube video, and it was Robbie Lawler versus Roy McDonald 2 at UFC 189, and these two welterweights went at it for like almost, I think it was a fifth round TKO win for Robbie Lawler. And these guys stood in front of each other and threw bombs for like 4.5 rounds. And after like the fourth round or one of the rounds, they stared each other down after the round was over, and Rory McDonald's face is all busted open. There's blood coming out of his nose. He's just like looking at him like he's gonna murder him. And then Robbie Lawler looks down at the center of the octagon and like snorts blood out of his nose, goes spraying everywhere. And I was like, that is the most badass thing I've ever seen in my life. So then I started going down like a YouTube rabbit hole watching old fights. And then I want to say UFC 257, McGregor versus Poirier #2 was the first card I actually watched as it happened. And Dustin Poirier knocked out Conor McGregor in the second round. And it was a good card. It was a really good main event. And it just kind of worked its way into my life. Like I started following the UFC and all the other Instagram pages, keeping up with the news, and it got. I was a UFC fan by the end of my senior year in high school, and then it really became like a huge thing when I met my good friend Christian up at school. He's also on the team, also a captain this year, and might be one of the quickest friends I've ever made in my life. Sat down next to him. He was wearing a Guns N' Roses shirt. I was like, hey, that shirt's cool. And then I was talking to him for like maybe 5 minutes. And then I was like, yo, you see Usman's fighting Edwards again? And he's like, dude, you watch the UFC? I'm like, yeah, I do. It's like that's my jam. So then I just started following it. I had someone to talk to about it all the time. So freshman year, almost every single run, me and Wetzel would just chop it up for like an hour talking about the UFC, and it got bigger and bigger, and more and more of a fan. And now like Saturday nights, I'm like sitting in my room watching the early prelims with a couple of my friends. I'm like, what am I doing here? I don't know who these guys are. Like, why am I watching this? But it's fun. It's a fun sport to watch. It's fun to talk about. Pick your favorite fighters. Go nuts when they win. Feel devastated when they lose. Um, yeah, it went from watching one fight on YouTube to talking about it like literally almost every day.
That's amazing. It's interesting how, just watching this on YouTube leads to, your senior capstone, your senior thesis, one of the biggest parts of your academic career. And so my question following that for you is, do you think you want to work in sports coming out of college?
Definitely, definitely. Not sure. Obviously depends on what opportunities present themselves, how things work out. Obviously, you can't control whether you get accepted or denied at a certain job, but I do want to work in sports. I was very fortunate to have an internship in the fall with our athletic communications department up here. Loved that. Loved working at the games. Loved writing about sports, covering the games, working the cameras, stat tracking. I liked making the graphics for the social media. I'd say I really enjoy working with sports, both purely from an entertainment perspective, if I find it fun to work with sports, but especially where college athletes are concerned, it made me feel good that like what I was doing, whether it was making a graphic or doing the close up camera at a hockey game, like I was giving the athletes the coverage that I think they deserved. I think when you're a college athlete, you want to feel like what you're doing matters. You want to feel like you're getting the proper amount of media coverage and social media sort of presence, and making a graphic, putting different people on the graphics, writing senior day scripts. It felt like what I was doing. I not only did I enjoy it, but it felt like it mattered. And um, yeah, it was cool to do something that I both liked and felt had like a purpose with.
That's amazing. I find myself in a very similar position with work, obviously being a sports communication student here at Sacred Heart. I think it's very interesting how like this field has become so big so recently. Jack, my last guest, also happens to be a sports communication student, so it's very fun, seeing this building sphere of people where work isn't going to be this crazy thing where you're going to do taxes, it's not something serious. I think one thing my boss says a lot that really like resonates with me because I want to have fun with what I'm doing. I don't want it to be something like deathly serious. I don't think I could work for 50 years doing something like that. So my boss, Aaron, will always say it's not rocket science, it's just TV. And that always sticks with me a lot, just how like, fun and lighthearted the work can be. But moving on from that, on top of being a UFC fan, you also happen to be a prolific Boston sports fan.
Oh yeah,
Um, so I
definitely.
wanted to ask you, also being a Boston sports fan, what do you think the best part about Boston sports culture is? And then if you have a favorite moment in your history as a fan of Boston sports.
Oh boy, I feel like I talk about Boston sports for hours, days. It's how I was raised. Both my parents, diehard Boston sports fans. Let's see. Best part about being a Boston fan and the Boston culture, I'd say it's probably our lack of toleration for subpar teams and for losing. I think a lot of sports cities they have this sort of acceptance where like, ah, the team sucks this year. When the Patriots were bad, the fans were letting the ownership hear it every single game. Every single game. It's like they refused to accept that the product on the field was subpar. And you can see it with Red Sox fans and the way they go after John Henry and the management group for never spending any money. You can see it with the Celtics and the way that they, in even what was supposed to be a down year, the way they construct their roster is not to tank. Joe Mazzulla, take one look at Joe Mazzulla. That dude doesn't even know what the word tank means. He's like, tank, can we do that? Can we blow up the enemy with our tank? Yeah, I think we can. Like he doesn't even think about planning to lose because he's so focused on winning. I'd say Boston sports are defined by the fact that our teams are winners and they have a winning culture around them. And because of that, in my 22 years on this planet, I have witnessed some of the greatest sports moments in the history of literally any sport. Picking one would be basically impossible. I would say if I have to think of like a Mount Rushmore or a couple, I would say that David Ortiz home run in what was that 2013 where he popped it over the without right field and the cops like sticking his arms up in the air like oh my god. I remember watching that and being absolutely amazed. I'll say never I've my dad was absolutely ecstatic when the Bruins won in 2011 against the Canucks. Enemy territory game 7 against Vancouver, shutting them down, bringing home the Stanley Cup was huge. Loved seeing Zdeno Chara get a Stanley Cup too because he's a baller. For the Celtics is tough because I remember watching the 2008 finals and being hyped about that, wearing my big NBA sweatband and my Kevin Garnett jersey. But I would say winning the NBA Finals in 2024 was sick, but I almost liked Jason Tatum's 46 points in Game 6 against the Bucks a couple years back. He was just on one that game. Every time he put the shot up, I'm like, he's not going to miss. He can't miss. This dude's dialed. The Bucks are literally dust. They're going home. I could feel it. That was pretty sick. And then my Patriots, my Patriots. Oh boy, I could talk about the Patriots for a long time. Um, it's got to be a tie between 28-3 and Malcolm Butler. As much as for anyone who doesn't know, I'm a huge Drake May fan. I bought an I Love Drake May t-shirt last April. So coming off of a 4-13 season, I knew he was going to be the truth. Everyone said, "Brandon, you're crazy. Why do you think they're going to go 12-5? Look at our schedule. We're going to go 7-10. You're delusional." And I was like, "You just watch. This kid's got it. I believe in Drake May." And then he goes out there and does what he does and has the season he had. But 28-3, I was losing my mind. I was running circles around my house when we were down 25 points. I couldn't believe it. I was like, how are we going to lose this game? And then Tom Brady told Julian Edelman laser focus on the sideline. And every time we scored, my brain was like, what if they did it? Like, what if they pulled this off? Like, how crazy would that be? James White, he's in for the touchdown. Matt Ryan looks like he's about to throw up on the sidelines. The owner looks like the Falcons ownership group looks like they're about to throw up on the sidelines. That was beautiful. But there was something nice about Malcolm Butler. The I would say something about sports that I actually got to talk about in my thesis was you're not just watching because you like to see the sport. It's obviously a part of it, but you're expecting to see something great. You're expecting to see people rise above impossible odds. You're expecting to see moments that are going to become like memorialized in part of like the sports mythology. And when you think about football in the last 20 years, goal line intercepted by Malcolm Butler. I mean, if you remember how that game was going, back and forth between one of the best defenses of the 21st century and the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. And then people forget a couple plays before that, Russell Wilson throws a moon ball down the sideline. And oh my God, was it Jermaine Kearse? Jermaine Kearse like falls on the ground and the ball bounces off his hand up in the air after Malcolm Butler tips it, mind you, and just falls in his lap on like the 10-5 yard line. I was watching that. I'm like, oh my God. The helmet catch and then Mario Manningham fingertip grab and now this bull crap. I'm like, how? What is it with these catches? I can't take it anymore. And then Marshawn Lynch gets stopped on like the half-a-yard line by Donta Hightower. And I'm like, oh my God, like it's over. We're gonna have like 20 seconds left and they're gonna be up by 4. Like, what are we doing? And then shout out Pete Carroll, I guess. Thank you. Thank you for choosing to throw the ball with Marshawn Lynch on the goal line.
The video
And
of Marshawn on the sideline hearing about that is to this day one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
it's like he knew what was going to happen. He knew how disappointing the end result was going to be, and he was like bracing himself for it. And then the fact that the craziest thing about that is Malcolm Butler didn't play the majority of that game. Kyle Arrington was the corner in that position for most of the game, and then he was getting beat, so they put in Butler. And the Patriots had practiced that exact goal line package the week before leading up to the Super Bowl. There's like training footage of Butler being told to jump the route and pick the ball. Perfect execution. One of the most iconic. Oh, I was so grateful to witness that. I really Boston sports, man. No other sports city comes close. And I include New York and Los Angeles in that because they both have like 3 times as many teams as us, and they don't have the culture we have. We're gritty, we're tough, and we win, and that just makes it special to watch and special to be a fan of.
That was an incredible summary for Boston sports, and there are a few amazing gems in there that really cut at the heart of what this show is supposed to be. And that would be a great place to end it, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about one more thing.
Okay.
The play-by-play with Patrick and Brandon.
Oh yeah.
Now, before we even get to the show, it was, our big joint venture into the sports media sphere. But it was not our first. Describe to me your experience running the Instagram account Kyrie's Third Eye.
Oh boy. Oh wow. I haven't thought about that in a long time. Well, let's see. I've liked making memes about literally anything since I got a phone. And as someone who watches a lot of basketball and is inspired by the greats, shout out real NBA quotes and the guys that run that page. I find it hilarious. I was it's something fun. Making memes about sports are really fun. It's a way to share stuff with your friends and keep it light, keep it entertaining. And me personally, I like making memes. I make memes about my own team up here on TikTok. I make memes. I'll have to share. I actually can't. That's a C. I can't talk about that. But we'll get to that when I graduate. But Kyrie's third eye, I was like, this is funny. Kyrie Irving with the whole spiritual, like, oh, I can see beyond him on a different plane. I'm like, this is gonna be funny. Um, God, that lasted maybe what, a month and a half.
If even.
I got to see if I can track that down and look at those because I'm sure they're just like the most cringeworthy uh, images and videos that could ever be made. But I don't know. It was fun. It was a fun thing to do, and just it's fun to make memes about the thing you're watching. It's a way to sort of enhance the viewing experience, I'd say.
For the viewers that may have absolutely no idea what we're talking about, back in, I think it must have been sophomore year of high school.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Must have been. Pre-COVID, me, Brandon, and then our friend Logan, we came together. We made this NBA Instagram account called Kyrie's Third Eye, where we made memes. We did like analysis of teams. We just give like our opinions on certain things on the sport, like favorite players, favorite all-time players, whatever. And it was fun for a while. But I think one thing that like a group of busy sophomores didn't realize is just how much work it was going to take. And so it floundered out like very quickly just because of how much other stuff we had going on.
Yeah, I can't say I was good at time management back in high school, so
Yeah, I
it's
don't
a
think
lot
many
doing it
people
now.
can. But it was a fun, brief experience and, a very great prequel to the play-by-play with Patrick and Brandon. So again, for the viewers that have no idea what we're talking about, last summer, Brandon and I started a sports podcast where we would talk about what's going on in sports, what's topical, give our opinions, answer questions from fans. We'd interview people on the show. Um, it was a very fun, interesting time. Again, a lot of hard work. Once we got back into college, it just became the kind of thing that we didn't have time to keep doing week by week, or if we did do it, it wouldn't have been, the quality that we wanted to bring to the
It'll
social
come
media sphere.
it'll come back though. I can't see myself not wanting to do it in the future. It's too fun. It's too fun. And it's a fun outlet to be able to talk about stuff like that in a, more professional setting. And it's just good. It's good practice. It's always good to it's like public speaking. You always want to practice being able to articulate your thoughts and communicate with people and a good mix of life skills and just pure enjoyment for me because I get to rant about literally any sport I want, which is nice.
That was going to be the last question I asked was, do you think the play-by-play is coming back? But breaking news, drop the Woj bomb, maybe throw up a graphic like at the end of an Avengers movie. The play-by-play will return.
Oh yeah,
Huge
definitely.
news for our three fans out there. I'm sure
You're
they're
doing
super
good.
excited right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But so with that answered, then my last question for you is going to be, did you have a favorite episode or even just like a moment from working on the play-by-play podcast?
So I'm gonna say every time we've had a guest on there, I've been like super stoked. to interview people, to talk with them, to get their experience. Obviously, we've had Todd Archer, insider for the Cowboys, on. That was a great episode. Talking to Will Blaylock, former professional basketball player, hearing him talk about how nasty Steve Nash was, my mind was blown. Um, and then obviously Brady Olson, CCSU quarterback, two-time NEC champion. Absolutely sick to have him on the show. So having the guests was cool. Um, I also loved the viewer question episode. We got some great questions. We got some really thought-provoking ones. We got some really funny ones. We got some Mac Jones questions. It was really that was really fun to like be able to interact with the people that were watching and base an episode off of that was really sick.
Yeah, so for the listeners at home, one thing we did that I think really, built the identity of our show is we dedicate time at the end of every episode to answer viewer questions. And some of them were like very serious, insightful sports questions, but then every now and then we'd get these like build a basketball team with Marvel characters,
Oh
or
yeah,
what's
baller.
like the greatest Mario Super Sluggers map, like sports adjacent things that we talked about because it's super fun and interesting, but it was just like very out there. And I think that really helped build our identity. So for our 10th episode, the last episode we recorded in the summer, we had like a 2 hour episode where we just answered, I don't even know how many viewer questions. We got a pretty absurd amount for that. It was a really fun time.
Yep, that was great. That was great. How does who's the best Mario Super Slugger and why is it Wiggler? Um,
Incredible question.
I have to go find my Marvel basketball team. I put together a pretty solid squad. I think we were like our the viewer vote was like dead split on it too. We actually had a pretty balanced matchup.
Going to 7 games easily.
Absolutely.
But yeah, with that, Brandon, it was great to talk with you today. If you have, anything else you want to say to the viewers, anything you got to get off your chest, anything you're working on before we call it quits here.
Um, Appreciate being on. Love talking about sports. They're a huge part of my life. That's just the way it's been for 22 years, and I don't see it changing. Considering that I want to keep running and that I want to do this for work. Um, yeah, I just sports are great. Sports as an athlete, they allow you to compete, you build bonds, you make friends, you create memories that last a lifetime. I will always remember playing manhunt in the woods my freshman year of high school, at cross country practice. I'll remember how great it felt to score at the conference championship in the fall for cross country. Um, Type of things that you carry with you for your whole life, and then to watch them. What's better, man? What's better than getting your friends together, getting your family together to watch a game and talk about it and just take it all in. It's special. It's special, and I think people will try to dismiss it. Oh, it's just a game. Oh, it's just a game. Like, why do you care so much? I'm like, I don't know. It's special. It's really special, and creates a lot of great memories whether you're watching or you're playing. So
Very eloquently put. Thank you. Thank you, Brandon. I wanted to make sure I thank you very explicitly for joining me today. Different show, same setting. I'll make sure to tell the interns you said hello. I'm sure they miss you a lot. Um, and to the viewers at home, thank you for tuning in for this one. That's all from us at the Sports Perspective today. Thank you for watching this episode of the Sports Perspective. Make sure to look out for the rest of our content and leave a comment down below.